Have you ever stopped to question whether everything you've been taught about money might be profoundly wrong? What if I told you there's a lie being repeated for generations? A lie so well told that you probably accepted it as absolute truth without ever stopping to critically analyze it? What you're about to discover could shake the foundations of everything you believe about work, effort, and prosperity. Because perhaps, just perhaps, you've spent years, maybe decades, following a map that was never going to take you to the destination you desire. In the next few minutes, we're going to dive into a journey that will show you exactly why intelligent, dedicated, and hardworking people remain trapped in the same financial cycle while a silent minority accumulates wealth following completely different principles. You're going to understand the invisible mistake that's sabotaging your growth. You'll discover how your own financial behavior might be your biggest enemy. And most importantly, you'll learn the real path to finally escape this trap. But attention, this isn't for those who just want to feel good or hear more of the same. This is for those who are genuinely willing to question their deepest beliefs and make real changes. If you stay until the end, you'll have in your hands information that can literally redirect your financial trajectory. But if you ignore this, in 10 years, you'll be exactly where you are now, maybe even worse, wondering where you went wrong. So tell me, are you prepared to confront uncomfortable truths about your relationship with money? Let's start with a real story, a story that probably looks a lot like yours or someone you know. And this story will reveal something fundamental about how we've been conditioned to think about wealth. Imagine a person who did everything right, absolutely everything society told them to do, studied diligently, got good grades, entered a respectable college, graduated, got a job at a solid company, started working, and not just working, but working hard, arriving early, leaving late, dedicating themselves, making an effort, working overtime, taking on responsibilities, showing commitment, doing everything a good employee should do. This person sincerely believed that if they worked harder than others, if they dedicated themselves more, if they made more effort, naturally the reward would come, the salary would increase, opportunities would appear, prosperity would be inevitable. After all, isn't that what we were taught? That work dignifies, that those who work hard win, that effort is rewarded? But you know what happened? Years went by. 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and this person was still in the same place. The salary increased a little here, a little there, enough to keep up with inflation, but never enough to really change their life. Bills remained tight. The feeling of security never came. Dreams remained postponed. And most frustratingly, this person looked around and saw other people who didn't work as hard, who didn't dedicate themselves as much, but who somehow were prospering, were building wealth, were living with more freedom. And this generated an anguishing question. What's wrong with me? Why isn't my effort being rewarded? Have you ever asked yourself this question? Have you ever felt this way? Because if you have, you need to understand something crucial. The problem isn't you. The problem isn't lack of effort. The problem isn't lack of dedication. The problem is much deeper and much more systematic than that. The big mistake, the mistake that keeps millions of people trapped, is that they're playing the financial game with the wrong rules. They're following an outdated manual, a manual that perhaps worked at some point in the past, but today only leads to frustration and stagnation. What is this manual? It's the manual of direct exchange of time for money. It's the belief that you sell your hours, your effort, your energy, and receive a salary in return. And that if you sell more hours, if you make more effort, you'll receive more. But there's a fundamental problem with this model, a problem that most people never stop to analyze. The problem is that you have a limited amount of time, you have a limited amount of energy, you have a physical and mental limit to how much you can work. So even if you work at maximum capacity, there's a ceiling, there's a maximum limit to how much you can earn in this model, and that ceiling usually isn't very high. Do you see the trap? You're operating within a system that has a structural limit. No matter how hard you try within this system, you'll never exceed that limit. It's like being on a treadmill. You can run faster, you can sweat more, you can get more tired, but you stay in the same place. So the question you need to ask yourself isn't, how do I work harder? The question is, why am I on this treadmill and how do I get off it? Now, let's talk about something very few people truly understand, which is the fundamental difference between working for money and making money work for you. Because this is the essential division between those who stay trapped and those who prosper. When you work for money, you're using your time and energy to generate income. When you stop working, the income stops. It's that simple. It's a direct and limited relationship. But when money works for you, when you have investments, when you have assets that generate income, when you have systems that produce results without directly depending on your time, then you've broken the limitation. Then you've gotten off the treadmill. Then you've entered a completely different game. And here's the crucial point nobody told you. Rich people didn't get rich working hard. They got rich building and acquiring assets, building systems, creating income sources that don't depend on them actively working all the time. But why didn't anyone teach you this? Why in school, in college, in your family, did everyone teach you to get a good job but nobody taught you to build assets? Because the system was designed to form employees, not to form wealth creators. The system needs people who work, who produce, who consume, who pay taxes. The system wasn't made to free you, it was made to keep you functioning within it. Does this bother you? It should bother you because it means you've been conditioned since childhood to follow a path that benefits the system, but probably won't lead you to the prosperity you desire. Let's go a bit deeper into this question of assets, because this is absolutely fundamental, and most people have a completely distorted understanding of what an asset is. Many people think an asset is everything you own, your car, your house, your furniture, your clothes. But actually, from a real financial perspective, an asset is only that which puts money in your pocket. It's what generates income, what works for you. Is your car an asset? No, it takes money out of your pocket with fuel, maintenance, insurance, depreciation. It's a disguised liability. Is the house where you live an asset? Technically, no. It also takes money out of your pocket with mortgage payments, taxes, maintenance, bills. It only becomes an asset if you rent it out and it generates income. So what's really an asset? It's a rental property that generates monthly income. It's a financial investment that generates interest or dividends. It's a business that generates profit without depending on your constant time. It's intellectual property that generates royalties. It's anything that continuously puts money in your account without you having to exchange your time for it. And here's the brutal difference between rich and poor. Poor people buy liabilities thinking they're assets. Poor people buy things that take money from them. Expensive clothes, new cars, electronics, things that depreciate, things that require maintenance, things that drain resources. Rich people, on the other hand, buy assets, buy things that generate income, and use the income generated by these assets to eventually buy the things they want. They reverse the order. First, they build the asset base, then they use the fruits for consumption. Are you building assets or are you accumulating liabilities? Look around you now. Look at the things you've bought in recent years. How many of them are generating income for you and how many are taking money from you? This simple analysis can be brutal, but it's extremely revealing. Now, there's another critical point that needs to be addressed, which is the illusion of job security. Because many people remain trapped in this model of exchanging time for money because of a feeling of security, they think that having a steady job, a guaranteed salary every month, is safe. But is it really? Let's analyze coldly. When you're an employee, when all your income depends on a single source, on a single company, on a single decision from someone above you, is that really safe? What happens if the company decides to fire you? What happens if the company closes? What happens if the economy enters a crisis and cuts begin? Suddenly, all your security disappears overnight and you're left with nothing, no income, no direction, desperate. Where's the security in that? True security, real security, comes from having multiple income sources, comes from having diversified assets, comes from having valuable skills that the market will always need, comes from having your own capacity to generate value independent of an employer. That's security. But a single job? It's one of the riskiest and most vulnerable ways to organize your financial life. But nobody tells you this. Nobody teaches you this. Because the system needs you to believe the job is safe, so you'll stay in it, Keep producing, keep consuming, stay trapped. Have you stopped to calculate how many income sources you have? How many different money flows enter your life? If the answer is one, you're at enormous risk and probably don't even realize it. Let's talk now about mindset. Because all this external system, these structures, these traps, they only work because there's a corresponding mindset. There's a mental programming that makes you accept all this as normal, as inevitable, as the only possible way to live. This mindset was installed in you since childhood, through formal education, through the media, through family, through culture, and it operates silently, shaping your decisions, limiting your possibilities, keeping you inside the box. What is this mindset? It's the employee mindset, the scarcity mindset, the conformist mindset, the mindset that says you need to follow the rules, need to obey, need to accept things as they are, need to be grateful for what you have even if it's little, need to work hard and wait for someone to recognize and reward you. This mindset is fundamentally passive. You wait, you react, you accept, you don't create, you don't decide, you don't command. And while you operate in this mindset, you'll never move forward. Because real change, real prosperity, requires a completely different mindset, requires a creator's mindset, an entrepreneur's mindset, a protagonist mindset, a mindset that says you're responsible for your reality, that you can create your opportunities, that you don't need to wait for permission, that you can learn what you don't know, that you can build what doesn't exist, that you can change the rules of the game. Which mindset do you operate with? When a financial problem arises, do you think, what can I do to solve this? What opportunity can I create? Or do you think, I have no luck, life is hard, the government is bad, the rich are privileged? Because this difference in mindset is the difference between those who grow and those who stagnate. There's something very important that needs to be said about financial education. Because the truth is that the overwhelming majority of people have no financial education at all. They don't understand how money works. They don't understand how compound interest works. They don't understand the difference between asset and liability. They don't understand how taxes work. They don't understand how investments work. They simply live on autopilot, earn, spend, without strategy, without planning, without long-term vision. And it's not their fault. Because nobody teaches this. School doesn't teach it. College doesn't teach it. Family usually doesn't know to teach it. So people arrive at adulthood completely unprepared to deal with money, and then they make terrible decisions, get into debt, buy wrong things, invest poorly or don't invest, work their whole lives and arrive at old age depending on a miserable government pension. It's tragic, but it's the reality for most. But here's the good news. Financial education can be acquired. You can learn. You can study, you can seek knowledge, you can change your relationship with money at any moment, no matter your age, your education, your current situation. You can start today to educate yourself financially, and this will completely change your trajectory. Are you investing time in learning about money? Are you reading books, taking courses, seeking mentors, studying investments? Or are you just complaining about the situation without doing anything to change your level of knowledge? Now let's address a topic many people avoid because it's uncomfortable, which is consumption behavior. Because one of the biggest modern financial traps is unbridled consumerism. It's the need to buy, to have, to show off, to impress, to feel good through purchasing. We live in a society that bombards you with consumption messages all the time, telling you that you need the latest phone, the new car, the brand name clothes, the exotic trip, the bigger house, the expensive watch, and they make you feel that if you don't have these things, you're inferior, you're failing, you're not enough. And people fall for it, take installment plans, make financing deals, max out credit cards, enter absurd debts to buy things they don't need with money they don't have to impress people who don't care. And then they're trapped, working to pay debts for things they don't even use anymore, trapped in a vicious cycle of earning to spend, spending more than they earn, getting into debt, working to pay debt, and starting over. Are you in this cycle? Do you buy out of necessity or impulse? Do you buy to solve a real problem or to fill an emotional void? Because until you confront your consumption behavior, Until you understand the emotional triggers that lead you to spend, you'll continue sabotaging your own prosperity. You'll continue trading your future for immediate gratification. You'll continue being poor no matter how much you earn. Let's talk about something few have the courage to admit, which is fear. Because many people remain trapped not for lack of opportunity, not for lack of knowledge, but because of fear. Fear of risking, fear of making mistakes, fear of losing, fear of the unknown, fear of judgment, fear of leaving the comfort zone. This fear paralyzes. This fear makes you stay in the job you hate because at least it's familiar, makes you not invest because you're afraid of losing money, makes you not become an entrepreneur because you're afraid of failing, makes you not seek opportunities because you're afraid you're not capable. But here's the hard truth. As long as you let fear command your financial decisions, you'll never prosper. Because growth, wealth, opportunity, all of this is on the other side of fear. It's outside the comfort zone. It's in the territory of calculated risk, of courageous action, of betting on yourself. Of course you need to be intelligent, need to study, need to prepare. I'm not talking about being reckless. I'm talking about not letting fear paralyze you, not letting fear prevent you from trying, from growing, from seeking more. What fear is holding you back? Fear of investing, fear of entrepreneurship, fear of leaving your job, fear of trying something new. Identify that fear and face it, because it's the chain keeping you trapped. There's another critical issue, which is your social circle, because the people around you profoundly influence your mindset and your financial decisions. If you only associate with people who think small, who complain, who conform, who don't seek to grow, you'll absorb that energy. You'll normalize that mediocrity. You'll think that's just how it is, that there's no way out, that it's better not to try. But if you seek to associate with people who think big, who are entrepreneurs, who invest, who grow, who seek knowledge, you'll raise your standard, you'll expand your vision, you'll see possibilities you didn't see before, you'll be inspired, you'll challenge yourself, you'll grow. It's that old but true saying, you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So look around. Who are these people? Do they elevate you or pull you down? Do they inspire you to grow or comfort you in mediocrity? And if the people around you aren't at the level you want to be, maybe it's time to expand your circle, to seek new environments, to connect with people who are already where you want to go. Are you surrounded by people who propel you forward or who limit you? Now let's get straight to the point about what really works to escape this trap. Because until now I've shown the problems, shown the illusions, shown the traps, but what's the solution? What's the path? First, you need to radically change your relationship with time and money. You need to stop selling time and start building systems, and this can mean various things depending on your situation. It could be starting to invest a portion of what you earn, even if small, to start building wealth. It could be developing a skill that allows you to provide services autonomously. It could be creating a side business that could eventually replace your job. It could be investing in education to increase your market value. It could be a combination of all this. The point is, you need to have a plan. You need to have a strategy that goes beyond simply working more, because working more in the wrong model will only lead you to more of the same. You need to work differently. You need to play a different game. Second, you need to educate yourself financially in a serious and committed way, not superficially, not watching one video here and another there and thinking you already know everything, but really studying. Reading the classics of financial education, understanding how investments work, how taxes work, how companies work, how wealth is built. You need to become a serious student of money if you want serious results. Third, you need to move from analysis to action. Because knowledge without action is just entertainment. You can know everything about investments, but if you don't invest a penny, you stay the same. You can know everything about entrepreneurship, but if you never try to be an entrepreneur, you stay employed. So take the knowledge and apply it. Start small if necessary. But start, because imperfect action is better than paralyzed perfection. Do you have a concrete plan to get out of this situation, or are you just hoping things will magically get better? Let's talk about investments. Because this is an area surrounded by myths and fears, but which is absolutely essential for wealth building. When you invest, you're making your money work for you. You're putting it to generate more money, and over time, with the magic of compound interest, small amounts transform into large amounts. But most people don't invest, either because they think they need a lot of money to start, or because they're afraid of losing, or because they don't know where to start, or because they think it's too complicated, and so they leave money sitting in their checking account being eroded by inflation, or worse, spend it all and have nothing left. Investing isn't rocket science. It's not just for the rich. It doesn't require being a financial genius. There are options for all profiles and all budgets, from conservative investments to more aggressive ones, from small amounts to large ones. What's important is to start, is to create the habit, is to set aside a percentage of your income every month and invest consistently, disciplinedly, regardless of how much it is, because consistency over time is what builds wealth. If you start today investing $200 a month, seems like little, right? But in 20 years, with average returns, this can become a significant amount. It could be the difference between a dignified retirement and, depending on the government, it could be the difference between having options and being trapped. But if you don't start, if you continue spending everything, in 20 years you'll look back and bitterly regret it. Are you investing? How much of your income do you set aside monthly to invest? If the answer is zero, you're literally throwing away the opportunity to build wealth. There's an extremely powerful concept called passive income that many people don't understand or don't pursue, but which is the key to real financial freedom. Passive income is money that enters your account without you needing to actively work for it. It's dividends from stocks, it's rental income from properties, it's interest from investments, it's royalties from intellectual property, it's profits from businesses that run without you. This is the income that frees you, because when your passive income exceeds your expenses, you no longer need to work for money. You work because you want to, on what you want, when you want. You have freedom, you have options, you have time. This is the real goal. It's not to get rich to show off. It's to get rich to be free, to have choice, to not depend on anyone, to be able to do what fulfills you without worrying about paying the bills. But building passive income requires that you stop consuming everything you earn and start investing in assets, requires patience because it doesn't happen overnight, requires discipline because you'll need to give up immediate gratifications for the future. But it's possible. It's achievable. Thousands of ordinary people have done it, and you can too if you make the right choices. Do you have any source of passive income today? Are you building any? Or do you continue depending 100% on your active work? Now I need to talk about debt because this is one of the biggest financial saboteurs that exists. Debt is you bringing future consumption to the present and paying dearly for it, very dearly. Interest rates in Brazil are among the highest in the world, so when you get into debt, you're committing to work in the future to pay for what you've already consumed in the past, and pay much more because of interest. There are people who spend their entire lives working just to pay debts, never get out of the red, never build anything, live eternally suffocated, and it's not necessarily because they earn little. It's because they spend more than they earn. It's because they have no control. It's because they buy on impulse. It's because they fall into the traps of easy installment plans, revolving credit cards, long-term financing. If you have debts, especially expensive debts, your number one priority should be to get rid of them as quickly as possible. Because while you're in debt, you're working for the bank, not for yourself. You're going in the opposite direction of wealth. Cut unnecessary expenses, sell what you don't need, make extra income, do whatever is necessary, but get out of this prison, because financial freedom starts with being debt-free. Are you in debt? How much do you owe? What's the plan to get out of this situation? Or are you just paying the minimum and perpetuating the problem? Another fundamental issue is understanding the difference between price and value. Because many people make financial decisions based only on price, always want the cheapest. But the cheapest isn't always the best deal. Sometimes something more expensive has much more value, lasts longer, works better, brings you more return, so the total cost over time is lower. This applies to everything, to products, to services, to investments, to education. You need to learn to evaluate value, not just price. You need to ask not only how much it costs, but what will this bring me? How long will it last? What benefits will it generate? What's the return on this investment? Rich people think about value and return. Poor people think only about price. And that's why often the poor end up spending more, because they buy cheap things that break quickly and need to be replaced, while the rich buy quality that lasts. When you go to buy something, do you evaluate the real value or just look at the price tag? There's also the question of present sacrifice versus future benefit, which is perhaps one of the greatest tests of financial maturity. Every financial choice involves this tension: spend now or invest for later, have fun today or build for tomorrow, immediate gratification or future reward. Financially immature people always choose immediate pleasure, spend everything, live in the moment, don't worry about tomorrow, and later they pay the price, arrive at old age with nothing, dependent, regretful. Financially mature people can delay gratification, can make sacrifices today for a better future, can invest even when it's difficult, can say no to unnecessary expenses because they have bigger goals. Which are you? Can you sacrifice a small pleasure today for a big benefit tomorrow, or do you always give in to the temptation of the immediate? Let's talk about purpose, because money without purpose is empty. You need to know why you want to prosper. What's your greater goal? What would you do with financial freedom? How would you use your wealth to create meaning, to help people, to realize dreams, to make a difference? Because when you have a clear purpose, a strong why, it becomes much easier to make sacrifices. It becomes much easier to stay disciplined. It becomes much easier to resist temptations, because you know you're building something bigger than you, something that matters, something worthwhile. But if you just want money for the sake of wanting it, without a real purpose, you'll probably give up midway. You'll spend it all on empty things. You'll feel lost, even having money. What's your financial purpose? Why do you want to prosper? What would you do differently if you had financial freedom? If you don't have a clear answer to this, you need to stop and think deeply, because without direction, you'll keep going in circles. We also need to talk about resilience and persistence, because the path to prosperity isn't linear, isn't easy. There will be obstacles, there will be frustrations, there will be moments when you'll want to give up, there will be investments that won't work out, there will be businesses that will fail, there will be tight moments, and the difference between those who get there and those who give up is the ability to continue, to learn from mistakes, to get up after falling, to persist even when it's difficult. People who build real wealth aren't people who never made mistakes. They're people who made mistakes, learned, adjusted, and continued. They're people who didn't let failures define their destiny. They're resilient, persistent, determined people. Do you have that resilience? When things get tough, do you give up or do you fight? Because you'll need that strength to get through the difficult moments that will inevitably appear. Another point that needs to be addressed is the issue of personal responsibility. Because it's much easier to blame the government, blame the economy, blame the rich, blame the system, blame anything external for your financial situation. But while you're blaming external factors, you're putting yourself in the role of victim, and victims have no power. Victims have no control. Victims just wait for things to magically change. But when you take total responsibility for your financial life, when you stop blaming and start asking, what can I do differently? What choices can I make? How can I improve my situation? Then you recover the power, then you become the protagonist, then you can change your reality. Of course, there are external factors, of course, context matters, but you don't control those factors. You only control your choices, your actions, your mindset. So focus on what you can control and stop wasting energy blaming what you can't. Are you taking total responsibility for your financial life, or are you blaming external circumstances? There's a truth that needs to be said, which is that knowledge alone doesn't change anything. Action is what changes. You can know everything about finance, investments, business. But if you don't apply anything, if you don't act, if you just consume information without executing, you'll stay exactly where you are, because transformation doesn't come from knowing, it comes from doing. So everything you're learning here, everything that makes sense to you, needs to become action, needs to become concrete change in your behavior, in your choices, in your habits. Because otherwise, this is just another video you watched, felt inspired for a few minutes, and then went back to the same old life. Don't let that happen. Commit to at least one concrete change, one specific action you'll take after watching this. It could be starting to invest. It could be cutting an unnecessary expense. It could be seeking an extra income source. It could be starting to seriously study financial education, anything. But choose something and do it. Will you do this? Will you really act, or will you just nod your head and change nothing? Now, coming to the end, I want to leave you with a powerful reflection. Imagine yourself 10 years from now. Imagine two possible versions of your future. In the first version, you ignored all this, continued doing the same things, continued in the same job, exchanging time for money, continued spending everything you earn, continued without investing, continued without educating yourself financially, continued blaming external factors. How are you in this version? Probably in the same place, maybe even worse, older, more tired, more frustrated, more regretful, looking back and thinking, where did I go wrong? Why didn't I act when I had the chance? Now imagine the second version. You took this seriously. You started educating yourself financially. You started investing every month, even if a little. You developed new skills. You created additional income sources. You changed your mindset. You took responsibility. You acted with consistency and discipline over these 10 years. How are you in this version? Probably in a radically different situation, with built wealth, with growing passive income, with more freedom, with more options, with more security, with pride in yourself, with the satisfaction of someone who took control of their own life. These two versions aren't fiction, they're real possibilities, and which one will materialize depends on the choices you make now, today, at this moment. So tell me, which version do you want to be? And more importantly, what will you do today, now, to start building that better version? Because time will pass anyway. In 10 years, you'll be 10 years older. The only question is whether you'll be 10 years more prosperous or 10 years more regretful. And that, my friend, is totally in your hands. The decision is yours. The responsibility is yours. The power is yours. So use it. Act, change, grow, prosper, because you can. You're capable. You deserve it. You just need to decide and start, and the best moment to start isn't tomorrow, isn't Monday, isn't next month, it's now, it's today, it's at this exact moment. So get up, shake off the dust, stop making excuses, stop victimizing yourself, stop procrastinating, and start building the financial life you want and deserve. Because nobody's going to do this for you. Nobody's going to come save you. You're the only one responsible and the only one capable of changing your reality. So assume that role, assume that responsibility, and go, because the future you want is waiting for you to have the courage to build it.